Well, let's get started. Thank you all for taking the time this evening to join this Beyond Homeschool Survival Cultivating Relationships conference. It's great to be together here with you this evening. I'm looking forward to some great speakers and some great sharing. And if you would like to turn on your camera just for a little bit, if you feel comfortable doing that, then everybody can see just sort of who's online, and you can wave and say hi everyone, and be able to connect that way. And it's great to see you all from all across Manitoba, and I think maybe some others from other places as well. I know that we've got folks from outside of Manitoba that are joining us as well. So thank you for being online. Our time here this evening is we've got a number of presentations and speakers, and just so that everyone knows, we are recording our session here this evening. So our intent is that it would be posted later as a recording to the MACHS website for people that missed it. You could certainly tell people about that, and they can watch it at their leisure or at another time when they can connect. Just as a suggestion for those that have internet, maybe like mine, it does help if during presentations, if you shut down your cameras, because then you get more bandwidth because you're not worried, or your computer isn't trying to upload things at the same time as going down. So once we get going, maybe you want to do that, and it might give you a better sound and a better video image coming to your computer. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Gerald Hubner. I'm on the board of MACHS, and beside me here, and she's just off the screen on another computer, is Bev, my wife. And also on our board of MACHS is Kelly and Cheryl Ronald, and they're on the line here, as well as Len and Teresa Bergsma. And we're just so glad that all of you are able to join us here this evening and to spend some time together here over the next 3 evenings. Before we go any further, I'm going to just stop and ask and to pray and ask the Lord to be with us as we spend time together, and ask for his blessing as we listen, as we hear, and as we share together. Please join me in a time of prayer. Lord God, I thank you. I thank you for the opportunity that we have to gather. Lord, even though we can't do this in person, the technology allows us to connect, and I thank you for that. I thank you that we can have the freedom of choice here in Manitoba for our education, and we take that as a gift from you. And Lord, we just ask that you would continue to allow and protect and advance that, so that we can choose to raise our children in you, in your word, in your fear and admonition. And Lord, we just ask now that you would be here with us this evening, that you would bless our time, that you would enable and smooth the technology so that we can connect well. And Lord, we just ask your blessing on what we hear and what we say. Pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. I want to play just a short greeting from our Minister of Education, the Honorable Cliff Cullen, who is he's just recently taken on the role of minister, and he is from rural Manitoba, actually hails from the southwest corner of the province. And he was gracious enough to record a special message for us. And if you just give a moment, I will cue that up and play those greetings for you, and be able to do this together. That's not what I wanted. Let me try this again. You didn't really want to see my computer screen, so
it's on here. Look on there. You don't have that one.
Okay, I'm looking at the wrong screen.
Yeah, he's looking at my screen. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 screens up here.
Okay, we'll try this one more time. We'll share the screen, and we'll pick that one, and we'll share it. There we go. And let me get rid of.
Just close it.
Good. Hello, everyone. As the Minister of Education in Manitoba, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Manitoba Association of Christian Homeschools Conference. I understand this conference has been running since 1991. Congratulations on 30 years. This is an amazing milestone and speaks volumes to the commitment your association has for families. I would like to take this time to acknowledge the tremendous teamwork, flexibility, and leadership your association has shown this year. It is because of these efforts, students and their families are able to navigate through these difficult times and still be in a position to be successful. This past year has been a challenging one for homeschooling students as well. You have had to adapt, show flexibility, and find innovative ways to keep your learning fun. I personally would like to thank everyone for their commitment and tireless efforts to make this school year a positive one, despite the pandemic. Again, it has been an honor to share a few words with you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you.
Where's my cursor? There it is. So it's we're privileged here in Manitoba to have a government and a minister that respects and I think works hard to protect our freedom. So we'll talk more about that later. But great to have a message from the Minister of Education. I'm going to stop now and turn it over to Cheryl, who's got some special things for us.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, to add a little fun to our evening, we've got some door prizes that we will be doing throughout our sessions over the next 3 evenings. So to start with, I want to thank our 3 contributors to our for the prizes. Heritage Resources. They are a family-owned business with the aim of assisting parents in schools and finding curriculum and books for their children. They operate their business from their home near Carman, Manitoba, and they just invite you to browse through their online catalogs, place orders online, or by calling or emailing them. They're also welcome to visit. If you're in the area, just call ahead and confirm. So Heritage Resources, thank you for some Todd Wilson books for this evening. Also, the Learning House has contributed a gift, and they are an online curriculum dealer. They say, our passion is to help you do education well, whether you are a homeschool parent, a parent of children in school, an educator, or school looking for curriculum. We're here to help you find the perfect resources to meet your educational needs of your students. With thousands of resources and over 25 years experience, we can help you succeed. And our third contributor is from Steve Demi. He's the creator of MACHS and the founder of Building Faith Families. His desire is to strengthen, teach, encourage, validate, and exhort parents and families to follow biblical models for a Christian home. So thank you to these 3 contributors. And with that, I will start our first 2 door prizes. The first, what I will ask you to do for, we're going to play some Manitoba trivia games. So I want you to get ready to fill your answers in the chat box. So I will ask the question, I will repeat the question, and then when I push go on the chat, the first person that answers it correctly below my go in the chat will be the winner. So we have, tonight we have Larissa and Anita helping me track winners. So with that, I will the first door prize is a book entitled Family Worship by Steve Demi, and this one is going to be easy. The prize winner for this one is going to go to the first person who registered online for our conference, and the winner is Assalta Siemens, And so we will try to get in touch with her, and she is the winner of the first book. So with that, that was easy. Second one now, get ready with your chat boxes. And the prize that we're going for this time is Crisis for Christ, a book by Steve Demme as well. And I will ask the question, be ready to type your answer in the chat box. When I say go, submit it, and we will do that. So most of these questions are going to be Manitoba trivia. I'm going to start with a fairly easy one. What is the name of the largest lake in Manitoba? So I'll repeat that again. What is the name of the largest lake in Manitoba? I'm going to push go, and as soon as I say that, submit your answers. Okay, go. Looks like people know their Manitoba geography fairly well. So I'll get one of my watchers here to put down the name of the winner. Just see if I could find that. I think the winner is Kurt and Rach. Oh, no, hang on. Those were easy ones. The first person to answer it after I push go is Jonathan Coots. So anyway, those were our first two. We're going to switch over to another report. I'll just pass it back to Gerald, and I'll be back with a few more door prizes.
Thank you, Cheryl. That was fun. We're wanting now to, we just have to have some maybe harder questions, but thank you for that. Wanting now just to hear about what's happening with MACHS, what MACHS has been up to, and what things we have been doing. We'd like to tell you about that. And I'm going to ask Kelly Ronald, who is the president of the MACHS board, to give us an update on some of the things that we've been up to this past year, and particularly in the past month. Kelly, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Gerald. I do get the privilege of giving you just a bit of a MACHS update. You might wonder, so what has been going on this past year? You're not doing a conference as we've done in the past. We didn't do one in 2020. So have you been doing anything at all? Well, first, I'd like to start with just indicating to you that there's been a significant theme for this year has been the explosive growth in home education in Manitoba, and not only in Manitoba, but all across Canada and around the world beyond. It's well beyond what we could have imagined. Here in Manitoba, our numbers of home educated students have more than doubled. Even though we were not able to hold a conference in March of last year in 2020, we were able to be part of a number of events together with partners around the world. We also had participation in the 4th Global Home Education Conference. Early in the pandemic, we had a part in having our former Minister of Education, the Honorable Kelvin Gerson. He participated in a global legislative forum on home education. You might have heard about this in the news. He was criticized by the CBC for this, but we were so thankful that we have a minister, or that we had a minister and a government that is not ashamed to be pro-family and believe in moral right and wrong. MACHS was also able to partner with homeschool organizations across North America to offer a great online event called Homeschool with Confidence back in October. Hopefully some of you were able to take advantage of that. We also organized a series of online workshops for families considering and starting home education in the fall. More than 20 great homeschool speakers shared their experience and advice. 20 workshops were hosted and were recorded, which are now available on the MACHS website. I encourage you to look for those there. A January workshop, also addressing the progress reports, was presented online, which had great participation. We will be hosting and organizing another workshop in June for the end of the year progress reports in cooperation with Manitoba Education. Here in Manitoba, we have a new Minister of Education, the Honorable Cliff Cullen. You heard him just a few moments ago. MACHS board recently participated in a briefing by the Manitoba Education officials on the proposed changes to the education status in Manitoba after Bill 64 was introduced in the Manitoba legislature. I'm sure you've heard some of this in the news. This new education bill will revamp the public education system over the next few years. This bill will establish the Education Act, which would replace the present Public Schools Act and the Educational Administration Act. The Public School Act currently regulates home education in Manitoba. So there's a few things that I think you'll be particularly aware of, and I'll just give you a synopsis of what those are. This is based on the meeting that we held last week. Briefly, this is what were presented from the Manitoba Education Board officials. Firstly, Manitoba Education, not school divisions, or the new Provincial Education Authority will continue to be the direct contact for homeschoolers. We are pleased that this is the case, as it separates us from the local school authorities and provides a consistent approach across the province. Our contact with the government will continue to be through the homeschool education liaisons. MACHS has advocated to keep this approach in place. Secondly, most of the provisions in the new School Act regarding home education are basically status quo. So in general, this is definitely good news, as there will be few major changes for homeschoolers. Homeschooling is proposed to be more formally recognized in the proposed act as a viable equivalent option to public or private schools. Section 323, Clause 1 states, a homeschool arrangement is recognized as being important in providing parents and students with choice in education. We're thrilled with that. We want to continue to have that choice and have that recognized. Third, depending on how it's implemented, there may be some concerns over the definition of homeschool, as the new regulation states, 324 subsection 2, a homeschool arrangement is limited to the parent and child of school age that reside in the home. While it was made clear that the term parent also includes guardians, we were assured that further discussion will happen regarding the implications for those currently having extended family as the primary teacher. Number 4, given concern over the above, number 3, questions arise about how co-ops and other educational arrangements fit into the new legislation. As the Act reads, if you, as a parent, will be regularly teaching more than your own children, even in your home, you would fall under the requirements for a school versus homeschool. We advocate that the defining test is whether the parent or guardians are controlling and directing the education or whether that has been delegated to others. Again, more discussion will be happening on this matter. Number 5, in addition to the proposed act in the bill, it shows a change to the compulsory age of education from 7 to 18 to changing it to beginning at 6 to 18. That's something that's for public school as well, but that'll be one thing that you'll notice. So the change is beginning at age 6 from age 7 currently. MACHS raised this concern that this places additional administrative burdens on homeschoolers, which may not significantly affect our delivery of education. So we teach our children, our 6-year-olds anyway, we just don't have to report them yet. We expect that we'll be caught in the same net as all the others and expect that this change will go ahead for the 2022-23 school year. That won't come into effect this year. Concerns were raised over homeschool access to special services like speech therapy and other special services such as physiotherapy and occupational therapy, which in our view are really health services but have been delivered in conjunction with public schools. Access to services by homeschool families has not been consistent with schools undergoing change. This could be further complicated. The method of this delivery may change so that it is hoped that there will be something set out defining how homeschoolers can access these services. We continue to advocate for equitable access. Number 7, we're almost done. Other changes. School boards will no longer exist and will be replaced by a provincial management system, not unlike regional health authorities. Please note that Bill 64 has not yet been passed, so further debate and changes are possible. It is expected to pass in November of 2021. Therefore, any changes will not come into effect this year.
What's that?
And
Hang on.
expect to be implemented for the
Uh-oh.
2022-23 school year only.
I bought that because we're getting low on baking potatoes.
Okay. I'm going to just back up a line or two here. We're going to have the opportunity, if you want it clarity in any of these items later after the keynote, when we have breakout rooms. If you're interested for further dialogue, please join the HSLDA MACHS breakout room where Gerald will be there. He can give you more clarity as to some of these, if some of these are of concern or you want clarity. In addition to this, into this conference, MACHS also organized a homeschool team track March 19th, and we had over 100 homeschool youth participate in a great evening. Finally, MACHS still hopes to organize more events such as the grad recognition for 2021, as well as a series of curriculum-focused events to provide you with the needed information and opportunity to interact with curriculum providers. MACHS is also working on organizing a more coordinated system of regional contacts. Our objective is to provide for much better communication as well as encouraging regional support groups. We currently have 16 families who have agreed to serve as regional contacts. We'll be organizing and rolling out this coordinated network in the coming months. All of these great ideas address great needs, but they require volunteers to plan and to organize the events and programs. We're looking for those who are willing to step up and help. So please let us know if you are willing to take on a role in any of these. It would be great to hear from you. Gerald, I'm going to just pass it back to you at this time.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate that very much, and we'll have some discussion more later. We're now going to take another prize break, and I'll ask Cheryl to take over again and to give us some instructions and some questions here. And I'm just looking for you to highlight you here. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Okay, well, we'll continue on with our door prizes. Again, I'll be asking 2 more questions for 2 prizes, and I will repeat the question twice and put your answer in the chat. So you have to wait till I push go, the first person after that. So the door prize that we'll be having now is a Todd Wilson book, Lies Homeschool Moms Believe. And the question, and yes, Gerald, I am going to make these questions a little harder. This, for the history buffs out there for Manitoba, the question is, what year was Manitoba founded? And the question again, what year was Manitoba founded? Okay, go. And I see the answer. The answer is year 1870. So we can track for the winner on that one. The next, one more door prize for the moment here is another Todd Wilson homeschool book, and it's entitled, What's Next? Affirming God's Plan for Your Homeschooler. And here is the Manitoba trivia question. What popular fast food was invented in Winnipeg? Again, the question is, what popular fast food was invented in Winnipeg? Go. I saw somewhere in there the answer, and the answer is Pizza Pops. and it was invented by Paul Ferrari in 1964. Okay, Gerald, back to you.
Okay, Smith.
Thank you, Cheryl. Great fun to be able to give away some things and have some cool answers, some cool questions. Our next session is a report from our great friends and partners nationally, the Homeschool Legal Defense Association of Canada, and I'd like to welcome Peter Stock. Peter is the president of HSLDA Canada, and Peter, welcome here. Peter's been the president now for 4 years. And he's been to the Manitoba Conference. Most of you have probably seen Peter, and we just want to welcome Peter. And I know, Peter, you're going to be talking to us this evening about just some of the things that have been happening nationally and reflecting on that. So I'll turn it over to you, and welcome to Manitoba.
Thank you, Gerald. Can you hear me all right?
You're coming through well, Peter.
Excellent. Okay. So, well, it was interesting to learn that the first MACHS conference was 1991 because it was only a few months later that HSLDA was founded in Canada and has been working alongside MACHS and many other provincial associations for that last 30 years to promote and defend our homeschooling rights wherever we live. So, so that's an interesting anniversary. Well, as Kelly mentioned, we've had some really great news this year. Despite COVID, or perhaps because of it, our homeschooling numbers really have dramatically increased. In fact, we believe they've more than doubled across Canada this year, and we're hearing the same story out of the United States and from other countries around the world, also, as Kelly mentioned. But I have some even better news for you. We of course have lots of these new families joining HSLDA, and we've been talking to them over the last number of months. We've been finding out what the reasons were for starting, and it's what we would think, that people are concerned about what's going on in the schools and the quality of education they may be receiving as schools are opened and closed and days are staggered and all sorts of other things, distancing and masks and whatnot. So a lot of families have decided to homeschool, and many of them did so thinking it would be a temporary measure, that they would homeschool for a few months or until COVID disappeared, or maybe just for this school year. But as we've talked to these families, this is the really great news. They've been telling us they've really been enjoying it. They've really seen a difference in their children, and they've succeeded academically. So they're so encouraged by it that the large majority are telling us they're going to stick with it for the long term. So that's really encouraging news I wanted to share with you. And yeah, I think we've just witnessed really the greatest single year growth in homeschooling in history in the world. And it's a very exciting thing. So our movement is really growing. Numbers in Manitoba are way up, as Kelly was mentioning. At least 8,000 students, perhaps more. Government hasn't published a final number yet. I think there's still people joining the rolls as we speak. Anyway, so just let's think about that for a minute. This is about 4 to 5% of the school-age population of Manitoba now is home educated. So that's a huge number of students. And huge cost savings for the government too. Let's look at it another way. The latest year for which figures are available, the cost of educating a student in the public system is over $15,000 a year. It's probably more than that because they haven't published numbers on that in a few years now. But at $15,000 a year and a conservative estimate of 8,000 homeschooled students, that's $120 million that Manitoba taxpayers are saving on their educational system. So that's also some good news. Well, I'm not going to repeat Kelly's points about the revisions to the Education Act in Manitoba. He's quite right on all those points. And just as a general comment, HSLDA is having read through those revisions or proposed revisions to the Act. We're quite pleased with what we see there. The government is recognizing the value of home education and affirming that the way we've been doing it is quite solid. Now, and of course, we don't expect that the new act will fundamentally change the way that we homeschool, or frankly, even the way we notify, for that matter. So that's all good news. So if you feel like it, you could thank your MLA, and when you next see them on the street, or call them or talk to them, whatever the case may be. All right. Well, we may be happy with our provincial MLAs in Manitoba. And by the way, I should mention there is actually a fair bit of revision going on across the country in terms of education acts. There are 4 other provinces or territories that are currently doing exactly or very similar things to what Manitoba is doing in revising their education acts at the moment. And again, the good news is in all cases, we don't see home education being threatened. So that's a happy update for sure. However, we're not quite as happy with our federal MPs. There is a lot of legislation going through Parliament currently that is concerning. Those of you who are HSLDA members will know that we've been talking about Bill C6, which is supposedly about something called conversion therapy. It's not. It's about suppressing free speech, specifically our freedom of speech when it comes to conscience and religion. If you want to talk about sexuality or gender, these are topics where the Trudeau government is trying to suppress certain points of view. And whether you support or oppose those points of view, we believe it's thoroughly wrong to squash the free speech rights of Canadians, no matter what their perspective. So this is a totalitarian bill, and unfortunately, up to this point, the leader of the Conservative Party, Aaron O'Toole, has not opposed this bill. So this is also extremely concerning. So if you haven't heard of this bill before, I'll give you a simple website you can look at. It's callyourmp.ca, callyourmp.ca, and there's a lot of information there. I won't go into all the details, but you can find the details there. There is a little bit of helpful news on that front. There was a new poll conducted just last week by our friends at the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Many of you will be familiar with this organization, jccf.ca. And they had the Nanos company conduct a survey nationally. They talked to over 1,000 Canadian adults and asked them, should adults have the right to get the sexuality counseling of their choice, regardless of the desired goal of their therapy? And the poll results say that 91% of Canadians agree with that statement. So the Liberal government and the Conservative leader are way offside on this issue. Anyway, have a look at callyourmp.ca for more details and give your MP a call. All right. One of the things that we like to talk about, of course, is what's happening at HSLDA, and for our members, a few notes of interest. And for those who aren't members, this may encourage you to look a little more closely at us as an organization. So on the HSLDA front, we've added a couple of collections to our digital library. So a few years ago, we founded a digital library, and members have access to that. It's filled with ebooks and audiobooks. You can download them onto any device. And the idea behind the library is sometimes when you go to the public library, there just isn't a whole lot of choice. There's not a lot of great material there sometimes, especially for children. And we wanted to really bring back a lot of wholesome material, maybe a lot of those classics that we haven't seen in many years. Maybe they were books that we read as children that aren't available on the shelves at the library anymore, the public library anymore. So that was the goal behind the library, but we saw a lot of other possibilities too. This can be a real aid and help to all of us in our homeschooling. So we've added a couple collections. We added a couple of collections in the fall, one on Canadian history, and another one on the topic of the Inklings. And if you don't know who the Inklings are, they're a group of writers in England at Oxford back in the 30s, and some real classics there. So check that out. We're also planning to add, just in the next few weeks, French language books for the first time. And so this will be an opportunity to serve our French-speaking members, Canadians across the country. And also, if you're learning French as a second language, this may be a resource for you or your children as well. So that's the library. And unfortunately, just as so many conferences have been canceled or in some cases going online, which is great, we're having another year at our organization where we're not able to gather in person. So we're looking at online conference conferences a little later in the year that may serve some of your needs. So stay tuned for that, and we'll let you know. One of the groups, one of the other provincial groups is holding a conference in the next month. And those of you who have an interest in the topic of exceptional needs may want to check out the OCHEC page. OCHEC is the Ontario Christian Home Educators, and they're holding a conference April 26th to May the 1st. And it's on that topic specifically. Another one that's coming up probably a little later in the year, they're looking at online or physical if they can do it, but it looks like increasingly online, is the New Brunswick group, and they'll be having Heidi St. James as a speaker. So there's an opportunity for Manitobans to tune in to what's happening in other parts of the country and take in other speakers as well in the months to come. Little update on our activities around the world. As many of you will know, we have a sister organization called the Canadian Centre for Home Education, and we fund a number of activities charitably that we don't fund through HSLDA. So CCHE is a charity, and our global activities include supporting the World Conference. Gerald Hubner is not only involved with the MACHS board and HSLDA, but he's also has chaired the global conference for the last two go rounds, and so making a real contribution there. So this past fall, we had the global conference online, and for those of you who didn't catch it, those recordings are available, so I would encourage you to check those out. I think there are over 60 hours of recordings from folks from all over the world on all sorts of topics. So once you've enjoyed the MACHS conference and you're feeling like you're missing out on more talks, or you want to hear more talks, check out ghex.world for more talks from a global perspective. And as an organization, we have been funding the development of national movements in different parts of the world. And some of our board and our team have been instrumental in doing this work in several other countries in Eastern Europe and Africa and so on. As an organization, we have funded the growth of national organizations in these countries. And currently we're funding the national organization in Uganda. So that's where some of your donations are headed. And then the final item I'll talk about just briefly. Now, this is a new project, and we launched it just as COVID was kind of getting started a year ago. And it's a project that is designed to reach out to and encourage and answer questions from those who are thinking about homeschooling or just getting started homeschooling, or maybe for the in-laws and others who have doubts about homeschooling. So it's a website called homeschool.today. And so homeschool.today is we think it's an excellent resource for answering all sorts of questions and helping people get through those initial stages. Now, for many of the folks who are watching today, you might have been homeschooling for a while, and you could look at that website and say, well, I know these things, but you know what? This is a great tool for you to refer others to. So if there's a family relatives who have questions, who are thinking about it, please refer them to homeschool.today. I believe we're going to hear a presentation a little later in the conference specifically on this and giving you a little more insight into that, so I won't belabor the point. Anyway, it's exciting to be participating in the conference today, and I'll be joining Gerald in the breakout room later on, and be happy to answer questions at that time. I'll pass it back to you, Gerald.
Peter, thank you. Appreciate that update and a little bit of a trip around the world. So it's exciting to hear the great things that are happening, and thank you for that. As Peter said, we'll be having a specific breakout room after Todd Wilson's talk, where we will have an opportunity to talk about questions about legal things, about development things that you can join us for. That'll be right after Todd Wilson is speaking, and there'll be a Todd Wilson room and an HSLDA MACHS room. So we want to now go to another prize draw not a prize draw, a quiz time. So Cheryl, over to you.
All right. Just to mention, the people that have won prizes, you will be contacted by Anita just to make arrangements to be able to how best we can get your prize to you. So the last prize for tonight, I'm going to give the dads maybe a little bit of an advantage on this question, and it's a really wonderful door prize. It's a set of 4 books. 4 of Steve Denny's books, so a whole set of books. So the question is, and I'm going to say, dads, perk up your ears here, and we'll see what we can do. The question is, who was Winnipeg Jets' first $1 million player? And the question again is, who was Winnipeg Jets' first $1 million player? Go. I saw the answer come through. The answer is Bobby Hull. So maybe we're dating ourselves by knowing the answer to that one. But anyway, thank you everyone for playing. You will get contacted for your prizes, and back to you, Gerald, for continuing the conference.
Thank you, Cheryl. Sorry for that interruption there. I didn't mean to barge in. I was just trying to get things queued up and for Todd Wilson's session. And thank you for the great quiz time. We'll be doing that every night. So looking forward to having more opportunities to do that. So our next part of the evening is our feature keynote presentation, and this is from Todd Wilson. Todd Wilson was going to be our speaker in 2020, and due to the conference being canceled due to COVID, he wasn't able to be here. But we've been working with him since, and he's back. Todd has been in Manitoba several times, and I know that I've heard from a number of people saying that he was one of the favorites over the years. Todd comes from Indiana. He's a homeschool dad, and he's known as the family man. Certainly speaks about the importance of families, and he's also a very funny guy. So I'm looking forward to what Todd has to say. We have his presentation recorded.
Well, hey everyone, and welcome to This We Believe. Now, it's kind of hard to record this all in one take. I'm not gonna, if I make mistakes, I'm not going to go back and redo it. So this is a one-take wonder. My name is Todd Wilson, and just because this is the first session of our time together, Thursday night, I just want to tell you a little bit about me. We've been there to Manitoba, had a great experience at your live and in-person event, and I can't wait to get back there. And because I just feel this really strong connection to Canada. I don't know why. My parents were not hockey watchers. We did like maple syrup, but I just have this super strong connection. Maybe it's because I love your national anthem, and I love all the little differences that you have. Like you get your hydro instead of electricity, and you wear tucks or things on top of your hats. And you have washrooms and instead of bathrooms, and I just love coming up and visiting you. Of course, as this plays out, it's probably you're knee deep in snow, but it's starting to warm up here. It feels a little bit like spring. It's 65 today. In northern Indiana, we're just about 3 hours east of Chicago, and not really terribly far from you. But again, excited to be there in person again. We have 8 children. The last time I was there, I think they were all living in my house and all young, and now they're not all grown up, but they are all growing up. My 4 oldest are married. My oldest is expecting their 3rd child. He lives right next door. I can look out this window and see his house. My other son, who, and you're probably wondering where we're at. I'm in the family man barn. My other son lives above me with his wife for just a temporary thing because they moved from outside our yard, living in a trailer, a camper, for a little while. But they bought the house across the street and they're in the process of working on it right now. It was gutted, totally gutted. And so they've added all the walls and all the plumbing and electrical. My son, Abraham, who's my fifth oldest, he's over there right now. They're digging the space from the new well into the house. And apparently the people who lived there before decided that would be a great place to bury cinder blocks. So they are digging through those and trying to make headway on that. So I've got two children who live right next door. I have two other children who are married. Sam, who's my second born, they're expecting their first. They live about 25 minutes away. And my daughter, Catherine, she and her husband live about 15 minutes away. So this dad feels very, very full. God has been so good to us. And I'll just tell you right off the bat, I believe in homeschooling. I was talking to a mom in St. Louis within the last 6 months, and we were at her event, and we were having pizza right before the event, and she was talking about how she had two sons. They were both 30 and older. One had died from a lifelong illness, and it was sad. And we were just talking, and she said, she kind of got serious. I made a lot of mistakes in our parenting over the years. And she said, but the one mistake I didn't make was choosing to home educate my children. And, I've thought about that a lot over the last 6 months because there aren't many things that we would say, boldly proclaim, yeah, I did this right. But, I think I could say that. One of the few mistakes we didn't make was choosing to home educate our children. And, I don't know how long you've been doing it. Maybe you've been thrust into doing it because your whole world is closed down. But I'll tell you, I really, truly believe it is not just a choice we made. It was not like, we weighed the options and then we made this choice. It was not even something that we could have been thrust into or something for some reason we just did it. I believe it is a gift from God. It is a gift to busy parents and busy kids to keep them from going their different directions, and we're forced together to spend our time together. And I have loved it. I've loved all of it except when I didn't, and I won't pretend even for a minute that it's not hard, because my wife and I had a conversation yesterday that started the day before, and she's like, I'm done, or put them in something. Now it was a moment of weakness, and I cheered her out of that, and we're committed to it. But it's not easy, but it is worth it. And that's my message. That's my message. But here's the deal. Back in the day when homeschoolers first started, and not in the very beginning, but 30 years ago, 20 years ago, they started homeschooling. There weren't very many, there was no such thing as an online anything. There were no even in-person conventions. They didn't have any how-tos, but they knew why they were homeschooling. They had conviction. Now we've kind of replaced that. We have lots of how-tos. We have online things. I'm recording this in Indiana, and you're going to watch it in Canada, or we go to in-person conventions, and we have online resources and bookstores and co-op groups and all those things. And we have lots of how-tos, but I'm afraid we've kind of forgotten the why-tos. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next 30 some minutes. And I'll tell you what, you're not even going to need to take notes, because you're going to remember these things, because there are only 4 of them. And in fact, this is kind of part 1 of an entire talk. Part 2 is we're going to talk about that on Saturday, as we talk about how to choose a relationship when there's so much to do. But I hope this makes you smile, because it should. So here's what we're going to do. This is kind of like the This We Believes. When Martin Luther, at one point, when he was kind of like he was categorizing the things that we really believe. He took them and he nailed them to the door. in Wittenberg or Wittenberg or however you pronounce that. And it was kind of like, as he nailed them up there, they went back to them and said, there are a lot of different things that we do, but this is what we really, really believe about God and the church and how he interacts with us. And so these are the 4 things that we really, really, really believe. And here's the very first thing. We believe that home is the best place for our children. We never had that. That was never a question back in the day from the very beginning of creation. That's just the way it was. God created, these people, and he put them together, and he said, here, this is where you're going to learn everything. And this is where you're going to use everything that you learned in this situation. But somewhere along the way, people started saying, no, that's not true. Really, home's an okay place for some things. And it's an okay place to go to bed. It's an okay place to have a birthday party, but it's not a good place to be educated in. And of course, that is a bunch of baloney. Even back then, if you would have asked anybody, so how often does real learning take place? Everybody would have said, that's a silly question. 365 days out of the year, you're always learning. And that was true. But again, somewhere along the way, people started saying, no, it doesn't really happen 365 days out of the year. It really happens only how many days? Right, 180 days out of the year. In fact, I saw it. I'm kind of adjusting my hair right there. I saw it kind of fleshed out in an old television show, the Andy Griffith Show. And my kids have seen all the episodes. Right now, they're into I Love Lucy. And they've watched them all, and they know the titles of them. But there's one episode that I was watching with my kids, just happened to be watching with my kids. I've seen it before. When Opie is at school, and Opie comes home from school, and he's got this paper, and it's all marked up in, I gotta respond here real quick. Okay, that was my wife, and don't tell her I interrupted this thing for this, but I had to respond. So Opie has this paper, and it's all marked up in red, and he brings it home to down to the sheriff's station to his father, who's Sheriff Taylor, Andy Griffith. And he hands it to his dad, and it's all marked up in red, and it says, "What's this, Ope?" And because it was it was all marked up, and Opie says, well, Paul, this is, it's just a bunch of history. I just don't understand the dates. I can't remember them all. And his father says, oh, that's just a bunch of dates. You'll never use them. It doesn't really matter. Well, Opie, the next day, goes to his teacher, Miss Crump, who seems to be his perpetual teacher for his entire life, goes to her and says, well, my pa said history doesn't really matter. Miss Crump is mad. And she runs down to the sheriff's station and she doesn't kick open the door, but she opens it forcibly, and she gets in his face, and she says, Sheriff Taylor, I'll leave the sheriffing to you, and you leave the teaching of your children to me, or the education of your children to me. And when she said that, I thought, wow, that's what they believe out there in the world. They think you parents are okay, or we parents are okay for creating children. We're just not qualified to teach them, And again, that's not true. I saw it one time in a show, The Little House on the Prairie. Now I don't get all my wisdom from old television shows. I get them from the Bible and old television shows. But my wife is texting me again, and I can't respond. She'll probably be mad at me, but we're good. I really probably should have told everybody I was going to do this right before. I can hear my son playing basketball outside, and I know he's going to come in and go, hey, Dad! So be prepared. So on Little House on the Prairie, there's this episode. Well, it happens about every other episode where all the children come running to this central building in town when they hear this sound, this da-ding, 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 da-ding. It's the sound of a school bell. Because that means that all the kids are coming, because now this square building in the center of town is where real learning takes place. But that's not the truth. The truth is, home is the best place to learn. In fact, that's where the real lessons are taught. I'm not talking about just math and science. Those are okay. Those are important. But the real important lessons are things like this: how to trust God. Is that an important lesson? Nod your head. Yes, that's a huge lesson. That's more important than anything, because you think our world is crazy right now. I can't even imagine what our kids' world is going to look like. It's just going to be a crazy place with crazy things in the headlines. And you think we're facing weird things? Again, the weirdness is going to be amped up, and they better know how to trust in God. Now, so we do that by making the Bible a priority in our house. In fact, we were just having this discussion yesterday. That's really the number one thing that I want my kids to know. I want them to be in their Bible. I don't expect them to be theologians, but I expect them to read the Bible, because God said his word wouldn't return void. And so I know that's important. She's doing it again. Well, we'll deal with that later. And so we make that a priority. Now, we also have family devotions. Now, we don't have them often. I wish we did. I wish we had them all the time. I wish I was one of those families who had them when their kids are born and then they stop when their kids are graduated. Sometimes we will skip a morning or two, or maybe a year or two. But hey, I don't give up easily, so we start all over again and we have family devotions. And so when we had family devotions, we'd before we'd read, sometimes we'd sing a song, and we didn't sing. It was not worship. It wasn't like I even pretended like it was worship time, but I wanted to teach my kids something, just through the words that they were singing, the words that they would hear in their mouth. And so we would sing, this is the day that the Lord has made. That's an old chorus from the 70s. I wasn't trying to, again, it wasn't worship, but I was trying to teach them that this is the day God has made, no matter what. If it's sunny or rainy, or we're shut down or we're open, it doesn't matter. We're going to rejoice. Then we'd sing, he's got the whole world in his hands. And what am I trying to teach my children when we sing that song? Yeah, that God is sovereign, that God is in control. Let me ask you a question. Is that true? Are you sure? Are you positive? It's real easy when we're doing this on the screen like this, but sometimes when I get behind the wheel of, my car or my RV, which is a totally different kind of proposition, it becomes a little foggy. In fact, one time we were driving our big RV, which is right on the other side of this wall, tucked nicely away, and I'm starting to have RV nightmares because I'm going to be getting it out soon. I remember one time we were on our way to Duluth, Minnesota, and we were driving along, and we were in Janesville, Wisconsin. And I remember I was looking down at my gauges, and all of a sudden, my voltmeter that tells me how much voltage. Just a minute. Hey, Debbie, I am podcasting right this second. I think that looks great. Okay, bye. This is professional because I am a professional. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, so I was on my way to Duluth, and we're going through Janesville, Wisconsin. My voltmeter, which is on my gauges, tells me how much voltage is coming out of my alternator. It should be, somewhere between 12 or 14. All of a sudden, it starts to drop, and it goes down to 0. And so I'm driving along, and I'm thinking, wow, something's going to happen here real soon. So I call up my dad. My dad can fix anything. And I'm like, Dad, how long can my RV run without an alternator? And before he could say a word, the whole RV just went, and we're shaking back and forth. And I found if I pulled over the side of the road and I drove really slow, the thing would run like a mile an hour. And so I go up, to an overpass there, and there was a little restaurant there, and I asked them if they knew of some place, and they said, yeah, go back the same way you came, about 3 miles. So we went back the same way we came. We were in this gigantic parking lot, and they couldn't work on it, but a big tow truck was going to come and tow me away. And so I was outside this RV just pacing back and forth like a caged lion, back and forth, back and forth. And my kids were yelling things out the window like, hey, Dad, did you try starting it? Or, real helpful. My wife's like, honey, did you change the oil before we left? Again, ladies, if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, just don't say anything. And finally, Ike, who's the one who's living above, who's building across the street, he said, he sticks his little head out the window and he goes, "Hey, Dad." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Maybe we should sing." And I'm like, "Sing? Why would we sing right now?" And he's like, "Dad, like he's got the whole world in his hands." At that moment, what was I teaching my children? That's right. That God cannot be trusted. We can memorize the verses, we can sing the songs, but in reality, I was teaching them that he'll let you down. Now, God got a hold of my heart right away. And I remember we went into that RV, we sang He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, and we prayed and we trusted him. I'll tell you, I know this. I don't know what's ever going to happen, with this lockdown. I assume in Canada, you're never going to get out of it. You're always going to wear a face mask. They're going to give them to you when you get your birth certificate. And I'm hoping that's not the case. But I know this, that God can be trusted. I don't know about the economy. I don't know if we're going to do this again, but I know God can be trusted. And if I'm freaking out, and saying, "I don't know what we're going to do. I mean, if this goes on much longer, if I'm doing that, what am I teaching my children? What are you teaching your children? Huge things, so maybe the most important lesson we teach our kids in our home is that God can be trusted, not just in this, but in everything. And so maybe we have to, gather our family in a circle and apologize and say, I've kind of led you to believe this about God, but that's not true. He can be trusted and we will trust him. And then you're saying He's got the whole world in his hands. That's one of the lessons that our kids learn in our house. They also learn how to love their future spouses. Because, the truth is my son lives right next door. And they got married. I think they're coming on 6 years this summer. And man, it goes fast. And, when they got married, I can remember they were they got married. And then about 6 months later, they bought the house and they were at our house, I think for dinner. And it wasn't a planned thing. So it wasn't like a big special thing. And afterwards, they went their way and they went to our house. And we all kind of split up and did our own thing. And I can remember going upstairs to our upstairs, because that's where we keep the upstairs. And I was going up these steps and I happened to look out the window that was halfway up the stairs and I see my son and his wife, Rissa, and they're holding hands and they look so in love. I mean, the sun was just coming through the trees and just a really light shade. And we have these big giant oak trees, maybe, I don't know, 50, 75 yards in between our houses. And they're walking and they're kind of bumping into each other, holding hands and bumping and, kind of kicking each other like in that puppy love stage. And my first thought that came into my head was, one day she's going to hate him, because that's the truth, because being married is hard. Relationships are hard. And we're going to talk about that on Saturday. But he's going to need to learn how to stay married. And guess where he's going to learn that? From me. From his mom. That's right. That is a huge, huge lesson. Oh, it's a lot easier to teach math. And yeah, we go ahead and teach math, but we don't sweat it if they don't get it. But these other lessons about how to love their future spouse, how to love their future children, that's a big deal. Talking about loving your future children. If you quizzed your children, tomorrow and you said, "Hey, pop quiz, do you think mom likes having kids?" What might they say? Yeah, that's a little scary, isn't it? The truth is sometimes we begin our day and we just plow through. There's carnage everywhere. Kids are crying and, "I'd never homeschool my kids." And we get to the end and we close the book and we think, "Wow, we got it done today." We got it done, but we didn't get the important stuff done. The important stuff happens 365 days out of the year in your home, because home is the best place for your kids. In fact, I would cling to that truth that home is the best place, and maybe you don't have anything else to cling to. Maybe you're thinking, "I can't do this. This is too hard." But in my heart of hearts, I believe I want my children home, because I think in the heart of most moms is that desire to have her children at home. Of course, in the heart of most dads, the desire is to drive a backhoe. But moms feel that way. And so if you're feeling that way, feeling like you want your kids home, keep them home. your kids get a head start even just by being at home. I know there are some single moms listening and they're like, yeah, everybody's encouraging me to put my kids somewhere else. If you have that desire to have your kids at home, then keep them home. If you have a special needs child that takes up all your time and you feel like you're not meeting all the needs of your other children, and everybody's saying, well, maybe you should get them into school so you can meet that child's need, and your desire in your heart is to keep them home, then keep them home, because home, no matter what, is still the best place for your children. I believe that with all my heart. So that's the first thing that we're going to hold on to. We believe the home's the best place for our children. Number two, we believe parents are the best teachers of their children. I didn't say the best teachers in the whole world. I said the best teachers of their children. If you want to find someone smarter, you can find them. They're a dime a dozen. But if you want to find someone better, there is no one than you. In fact, one time my sister-in-law, who's an awesome homeschooler, she gets a lot done. And I heard she was thinking about homeschooling. And I said something to her, and I can remember she whirled on me like a bear. And she said to me, Todd, I feel like I've wasted the last 15, 16 years of my life. I feel like my kids would be better off if anyone were teaching them but me. Do you know why she said that? Because she forgot the truth. That God gave her children exactly the mother they needed. When I say that again, I'm going to say it this way. God gave your children exactly the mother they needed. That's an amazing thing, And I know some moms are thinking, yeah, Todd, but you don't know me. I've skipped more days than I should, and I don't know my math facts, and, I don't know any of the parts of speech. None. How can that be good for my children? I know this, that you with those qualities are perfect for your children. And other moms are still saying, yeah, but Todd, they're the fun moms. I'm the one who takes all fun out of life. I drive them. I'm the one who leaves the carnage everywhere. How can that be good for my children? If I don't have them in tears by 9:30, I don't think I've done my job well. How can that be good for them? I don't know. No, I'm kidding. My wife would say that was her camp. But I know this, that you with those qualities are perfect for your children. Hey, dads, if you're listening right now, this is your job to remind your wife of that and your children of that. When your children say to you, yeah, but mom makes it so hard, it's miserable. You need to say to them from now on, and that's exactly the kind of mother God knew you needed. So when you go to bed tonight, you thank him for her, because it's true. And you remind your wife of that truth as well, because she doesn't believe it. In fact, I've taken a little informal survey of lots of homeschooling moms, and I've asked them, just one question. Do you think you're doing a good job homeschooling your children? So far, I've never had a single mother ever tell me that she thinks she's doing a great job. That just blows me away, because they're doing an awesome job. It's your job, Dad, to remind them of that truth. And so that means that you know what's best for your children, and you're smart enough to figure it out. And so if you don't like a certain aspect of school and you don't think your kids will need that in the future, don't do it. If your best friend says, oh, you've got to do unit studies because unit studies is the way to go, or you've got to do classical whatever because classical is the way Jesus did it, go ahead and look at it. And if you don't like it and it sounds too much work, don't do it. If you don't want to do unit studies and turn your living room into a spleen, then don't do it and don't feel guilty. You do it the way God would have you do it. In fact, dads, again, here's where you need to help your wife do that. You need a reminder of that truth. I know for my wife said she didn't want to teach about dinosaurs. And she goes, I don't like dinosaurs. I don't care about dinosaurs. And I'm like, well, then don't teach them about dinosaurs. And she said, well, Ken Ham says they'll walk away from the faith if I don't teach them about dinosaurs. I'm like, honey, you didn't walk away from the faith, and you don't know anything about dinosaurs. And that's okay. So you get to decide. In fact, one time we were at a homeschool convention and my wife said, hey, would you walk around with me, Todd? And I want to meet the creator of this curriculum because I'm thinking about doing it. So we went to talk to him, and my wife's like laying out this, like how she's thought about it for a long time. And she says to the guy, who created this is what I'm thinking about doing. The guy says, I don't think that's the right way to do it. And she said, well, I do for this reason. And he goes, no, I think that's wrong. And they went back and forth. And after a while, I wanted to say, do you know who I am? I'm the parent. You don't even know my kids. You've never even met my kids. You don't know anything about them. And you're telling me how to do this? Moms, you know your kids. You lay awake in your bed at night and in the morning early, in those early hours, and you think about them all the time. You think some other teacher would be thinking about your kids? Never. They may say they are, but they're not. You do. And that's because parents are the best teachers of their children. That's the second one. So the first one is home's the best place for our kids. The second one is parents are the best teachers of their children. And the third one is we believe that every child is a masterpiece. Can I say that again? We believe that every one of your children is a masterpiece. I'm going to say that one more time. We believe that even that child is a masterpiece, and again, back in the day, from the beginning of creation, that was never a question. We had all these kids that came along, and this kid was good with his hands, so he became a carpenter, and this kid was good with animals, he was a shepherd, and this one was good with numbers, and he was a mathematician, or this one was good with building things, he was an engineer. But somewhere along the way, I think at that time of that that building, that institution, they started saying, no, we can't say every child is a masterpiece. We need some standards, and we'll measure the kids according to the standard. And if they do well, then we'll give them an A for excellence. A little less, we'll give them a B, C average, D below average, and we'll just call them failures. We'll give them an F, and that continues into adulthood. We say, oh, you're a rock star chemist. You're way up here at the top. You're a nuclear scientist. You're here, a doctor, engineer, all the way down. And then, muckraker, custodian, lawyer, and it's a lot of fun when you're at the top because everybody looks at you and applauds, and they applaud your kids. But it's not so fun when you're down here. In fact, I will never forget, and maybe if you heard me speak before, maybe you heard me tell this story, the time where I met this lumberjack down in Louisville, Kentucky. And he came up to me and he looked like a lumberjack. He talked like a lumberjack. And he said, Todd, that is so true. He said, I never was very good in school. And he said it like that. He said, when I was in kindergarten, and he said it again like that. He said, my teacher was handing me back our papers. And he said, mine was all marked up in red. And he said, it had a great big old F on the top. He said, when my teacher handed it to me, she leaned down into my face and she whispered, we're going to put this out in the hallway so everybody can see how dumb you are. And when he said that, I just looked up at him and a big old lumberjack tear just slid down his face. And he said, that's pretty much my growing up because I never was anything but a dumb kid. And he said, even now I'm just a dumb lumberjack. And he says, I work with my dad. And he started talking about his dad and how they work together, and he sits on a tree stump, talks to him at the end of the day, and now he's just bawling like a baby. And I thought, how tragic that any child would ever feel that way. Do you know what's tragicer to me? That any child would feel that way and they were homeschooled. Because, Mom, sometimes we believe that those letter grades mean something, and they don't mean diddly. I think that's the Canadian word, diddly. Because if you were going to give a masterpiece a letter grade, what letter grade would you give them? That's right, an A or an A plus. Does it not seem odd to you that we take this kid who comes into the world, he's good at math, and then we reward him by giving him a letter grade A for being good at math, and the kid who's not good at it, who will never be good at it, we give them anything less? It does seem it's like rewarding a tall kid for being tall and not rewarding a short kid for being short. That's just the way they were made. In fact, I believe this truth, that your children are going to become exactly what God created them to be. Not even because of you, but sometimes even in spite of you. And I'll tell you, that takes a lot of pressure off. And then we can see our kids as masterpieces. And you know what masterpiece means, right? It means piece made by the master. And I know, I don't know like exactly where you live, even though I think I just said I know. I don't know what all the regulations there are, or if you have to keep grades. But if you don't have to keep grades, don't keep grades. If you do have to keep grades, don't show them to your children because it's not a measure of anything. In fact, if you shouldn't even show them to yourself, because I see a lot of moms who really the letter grade isn't about their kids at all. It's about them. And they only accept A's for being, and again, it doesn't measure anything. When I was in school, or really, I've talked to school teachers who've said, "Oh yeah, I'll give my kids a B if they just try." And in my head, I'm thinking, what kind of scale is that? The just try scale? That's not a real standard. In fact, when I was at the university, Purdue University, I decided on my last year my last semester that I was going to buckle down and I was going to get straight A's. And I did. I got all A's except one B. It wasn't even a B plus. It was just a big, good, solid B. And I went to my professor and I said to him, I said, hey, I wanted all A's and you gave me a B. And I was about ready to say, is there something I could do for extra credit? When he said, oh, you wanted all A's? And I said, yeah, I wanted all A's. And he said, well, I'll just change it. And I'm thinking, why didn't I do this earlier? I could have been like the valedictorian in my class, because he knew what I know, what you should know is they don't measure anything. In fact, all they measure is how good you are taking tests or how good you are in studying and then cramming and then taking a test. It is not a measure of a person's understanding, because I was good at taking tests, but it didn't measure anything. Didn't measure anything about that. We believe that every child is a masterpiece. And that they're going to become exactly what God created them to be. Because I have moms and dads who come up to me all the time and say, well, my son, he's a biologist and we didn't even cover biology. Or my daughter's a computer scientist and we didn't really do computers. How is that? That's because of this truth. It's like taking a seed, and putting it in the ground and then sprinkling some magic water on it, and up pops a plant. What kind of plant pops up? It's always the same. It's not always the same plant, but this truth is always the same. It's whatever I planted, right? So if I put in a marigold, up pops a marigold every single time. If I put in a pumpkin every single time. Never in the history of the world has a farmer put in like a bean and up popped a corn plant. It just doesn't work that way. It's the same way with your kids. Don't expect your seed to be something that he or she is not. If they're not good spellers, they're probably not going to be good spellers. If they're not good at math, they're probably not going to be good at math. If they're made to be artists or musicians or electricians or engineers or doctors or whatever, that's probably what they're going to be. Hopefully we wouldn't discourage them from being what they are supposed to be. Sometimes we don't like what they're supposed to be, but they were still created to be that. In fact, I see it with my own kids. My daughter, who's coming over in a little bit, she showed signs of wanting to read at an early age. And so she was like 5 or 6, and my wife got that book, How to Teach Your Children to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. And Catherine got it on like lesson 6. And she just read fluently. It was easy. It was no problem. My son right after wouldn't have gotten it if it was How to Teach Your Children to Read in 10,000 Really Hard Lessons. He knew the sounds made sound, or the letters made sounds, but when you put them together, they didn't make words. And we would go over it. We'd go, okay, what's the word? Ka-at. And he'd look at it and go, fish. And we're like, fish? No way. What's the first letter? Ka. What's the second letter? Ah. What's the third letter? T. What's the word? And he'd go, fish. Now, what's the difference? Did Catherine become a great reader because my wife was such a good teacher? No. Was it because the curriculum was so amazing? No. Did my son right behind her struggle because now my wife couldn't remember how to teach? No. Was it because the curriculum stunk? No. What was the difference? It was the seed. It was the seed. One was meant to read early, one wasn't. I have moms who come up to me all the time, and they come up to me at my table and they wait till everybody's left, and then they finally make their way up out of the shadows, and they're kind of looking around and I start looking around thinking, what are you looking for? And then they finally whisper to me and say, my son, he's 10 and he's still not reading. They say it like it's something illegal or something to be ashamed of. No. The truth is, do all kids read by 6? No. 7? No. 8? I'm starting to lose you now. 8? No. 9? No. Some kids are 9 and 10. It doesn't matter. Maybe some are even a little bit later. I met a mom who came up to me and said, I realize my child is never going to read. And you know what? That child is still a masterpiece. So I just think you need to back off a little bit, Mom. Smile a little bit more. Go ahead and plug away, and do this. Because here's my fear. The fear is that, we're frustrating ourselves and we're thinking, oh, they're never going to get it. And that's frustrating. But here's the bigger deal. I wonder sometimes if our children, maybe they can't verbalize it, but I wonder if they would feel, Mom would like me better if I just got it. Mom would like me better if I could read. Now, I know the truth. You love your children. But can you see how they might feel that way? Because of the things we say and the way we look at them and the frustration we sigh and we're like, oh, you're never going to get this, are you? Because I know that, again, I want to challenge you, to encourage you to love your child even if they never get it, even though they probably will. I mean, and yet I still have parents come to me and say, oh, Todd, I'm just praising God. I know you're right. I'm praising God because my child's in the 99th percentile. I'm still waiting for that parent to come up to me and say, I'm just praising God because my kid's in the 4th percentile or the 3rd percentile, because they should be. You should be. And I know that because remember when God went to Moses and he said, I want you to go to Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go. Do you remember what Moses said? Remember, he was like, I can't talk. My tongue is thick, he said. Do you know what God didn't say to Moses? He didn't say, well, Moses, with my curriculum, you can talk. He didn't say that. What did he say? He said, Moses, I made you that way. I made the deaf. I made the blind. I made the mute. I made those who are good at math and those who aren't. Now, he didn't say that, but he could have. I made those who are good spellers and those who aren't. I made those who are organized and those who are sloppy. I made the happy kids and the grumpy kids. He made them all. And your job, parents, is to love them no matter what. And again, remember we were talking about those early lessons? That's a lesson that you're passing on to your children, that unconditional love that they will need to use later on. So we believe that home's the best place for our children. We believe that parents are the best teachers of their children. We believe that every child is a masterpiece. And that really helps us then as we go into the 4th one. The 4th one is we believe that relationship matters more than anything else. And I forget that sometimes. I know that one time and it was years ago, I was working with one of my children and I was doing the homeschooling that day because we run a family ministry, and my wife said, hey, could you do school today? And so I could do the bookkeeping and I did, and I'm not very good at it, but I'm fast. And so we were into about 15 minutes when I said to one of my kids, I'm looking at him frustrated, and I said, what are you, dumb? Now, God got a hold of my heart just like that. And I backpedaled, and I said, oh, no, I didn't mean to say that. I'm so sorry. You're an amazing person. You're not that. But you know what my child heard come out of my mouth? What are you, dumb? Do you know why I said that? Because I forgot. I forgot what mattered. I thought what mattered was the curriculum I was doing with my child, the thing I was doing. But what mattered was my child, who I just so happened to be doing some curriculum with. I think we forget that. I had a mom come up to me and said, oh, Todd, I believe all what you said. But, with my son, Jason, every day we get to 9:30 and we get to math and he starts to argue and I start to argue, and now we're complaining and everybody's arguing and crying and mad and yelling. And she goes, I've tried everything. I've tried different curriculum. I get up in the morning, have my quiet time. This is the day the Lord has made. And she goes, we're in the groove until we get to math. And then he gets frustrated and I get frustrated. He starts to yell and cry. I'm yelling and crying, and it's ugly. And she goes, I don't know what to do anymore. I said, well, that's not so hard. And she said, what? And I said, don't do math. And she looked at me like I'd spoken the unpardonable sin, and she's like, you're kidding me, right? And I said, I'm dead serious. I said, what's more important, the relationship with your child or math? And of course, the answer is relationship. It's always relationship. I remember reading an article by Mike Smith, the president of the HSLDA, and he was saying that one of his teenage kids, when they got to the teenage years and they got to algebra, his wife and the child were battling over algebra, and they were trying to pound it into his head, and he said, finally, he said, we gave up. We just said, fine, we're not going to teach algebra. This is Mike Smith, the president of HSLDA, the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. He's smart. He wears a suit, and he knew that what mattered was not algebra. Because I'm asking you, what's more important, algebra or the relationship with your child? And the answer is always, you didn't say it out loud, relationship. So I said to this mom, you know what I would do is I would just back out of math for a little while and maybe play some games like Yahtzee. That's kind of like tricking your kids into doing math. Or don't even do that, just play outside or watch a video or just have fun, and then ease back into it. I'm going to warn one of my kids. You can come in. We're almost done. This is Carolyn, my daughter-in-law, but I'm not going to draw attention to her. And then ease back into it. And then the relationship is right. Now, I know that you still might be a little foggy on the relationship part, but you can join me on Saturday as we talk about how to choose a relationship when there's so much to do, because I know you're still fighting me on that idea. But I tell you, if we do these 4 things, if we believe these 4 things, cling to these 4 things, dads, if you remind your wife of these 4 things, I think we will do this. Look at my face. We will smile, and your children will smile, and homeschooling will be good, because you started this thinking it was going to be a good thing, didn't you? Right. But somehow you've gotten far away from that, and now nobody's smiling. I believe we need to go back to this we believe about homeschooling. Well, hey, thanks for joining me. I think we're going to do a little Q&A in a little bit here. But I don't have any products that you can buy, in person, but you can go to our website, thesmilinghomeschooler.com. You can go to our website and you can see a bunch of products there. I know it's sometimes hard to ship to Canada. But you can go through the Learning House. You can ask specifically for something that maybe we have that they don't carry, but they do carry a lot of our products. So you might check with them. And we would love for you to sign up on our weekly email, thesmilinghomeschooler.com. And we have a podcast called The Smiling Homeschooler. And you can also join our community over at Facebook for a daily encouragement in the things that really, really matter. Well, hey, I'm going to pray for you before I go. And then hopefully we'll see you again tomorrow. Let's pray. Father, I just pray for every mom and dad listening right now. I pray that you would help them to remember these 4 things, that they would cling to them in the busyness, in the hardness, and that you would help them to smile at their children, to remember that home is the best place for their kids, to remember they're the best at teaching them, and to know that every single child is a masterpiece, and that the relationship with them comes first. We pray all this in your name. And all the moms and dads said, amen. Amen. I'm going to get off here before somebody else calls me. We'll see you later. Okay, if you can hear me, maybe, I don't know, there's like a symbol you can give for a heads up. So yep. Kelly and Cheryl are waving at me, so I guess you can hear me. I've already asked, what the weather like is where you're at, and I've already had some people say it's warming up.
Peter, are you hearing us?
I'd ask you. You say no snow. Wow, I just assumed you had snow till the end of June. It's warming up here, and we're about, I know, I'll say Fahrenheit, and you probably have no idea how warm or cold that is, but 60 degrees today, so it was very pleasant.
Good. Gerald's right beside me.
Looks like we have a couple other folks. Okay. Well, Todd, it's not quite that warm here today, but it's probably warmer than that in our homes, and we've certainly been blessed by the message you gave us tonight about this we believe. We're going to be just throwing some questions at you, hopefully this evening, that will have greater discussion, and probably some of the things you said will just have caused us to question, or will have reaffirmed some of the things that we do. You say, just while questions are coming in, Todd, you say that the home is the best place for our children. But what about the teachers? Well, they're the experts, in the public system. Isn't that true? Or what would you say, in regards to
people say that, ask me all the time, what? Well, aren't the teachers and I'm thinking, you should take a stroll down memory lane every once in a while and just remember some of the teachers you had. I know some of them, they meant well, but after a few years, their hearts grow cold. And, I had teachers that made fun of the students. I had teachers who, were unkind to everyone. And some, I just remember, even as a kid who was like not even in high school yet. I can remember thinking, wow, are they even qualified to do this? Here's the deal. You can do better than that. In fact, not because you're smarter or because you know more, but because you care more. There is, and this is an overgeneralization, but I'm gonna stick to it. I don't think there's a teacher out there who lays awake most nights thinking about their students. But you moms, you do it all the time. I wake up next to my wife and her head's just like cranking. And now I may have said this on the workshop we just had. I don't remember because I pre-recorded it. I don't usually change my shirt in between, the question and answer and the actual session. But my wife's mind is just cranking. And I'm like, what are you thinking about? And she's like, I just feel like I'm letting down my big kids. My middle kids are getting lost. My little kids, they're not where they should be. I'm not meeting your needs. I'm not doing this and all these things. And she'll say like, what are you thinking about, Todd? I'm like, nothing, but I'm like, that's a lot of stuff going through your head. And my wife is always thinking about her children, just like you are always thinking about your kids, and just by being home, I believe your kids kind of get a head start. So you don't have to do that anymore. I would never compare myself, because even a good teacher who's in a school setting, they're kind of handicapped because there's too many students. But you're one-on-one. We had a lady one time. I was at a homeschool camp. And if you want some good ideas for a homeschool camp that you can spend a week at, let me know and I'll set you up with some great ideas. But I remember they brought in this expert who was a teacher, public school teacher for 30 plus years. And she was going to give us all these tips on how to homeschool our kids. And after she got through a bunch of them, somebody asked her, so how many kids do you have? And she's like, I don't have any kids. I have a bunch of cats then, a bunch of cats. And I want to raise my hand and go, well, maybe you should give us advice on cats then. Because teaching your kids is a whole different ball game. And so it's not even fair to compare ourselves with them because we're not doing the same thing. I've had plenty of teachers and, administrators and principals and superintendents say to me, I taught in the system for lots of years. Nothing prepared me for teaching my own kids. So, don't compare. But if you're tempted to at all, don't be intimidated because you are better than that. Just because, not again, because you're smart, but because God handpicked you for your children. And that gives me, and it should give you a lot of freedom.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Todd. I must just backtrack a moment and just say we got rolling on this discussion without just saying welcome here. We're thrilled to have you here. We just kind of got rolling here a little.
That's okay.
Early, so it was just good. Just for those of you that are in the breakout room, I want to say thank you for staying with us through some of the challenges we had. We would like you to, this is a Q&A with Todd. You have the direct line. We would ask you to just type in the chat box any questions that you would like thrown at Todd, and we'll just see what he would come back with. So please enter your questions in the chat box. We will bring them to Todd. And we don't have very long, so please get it rolling along as quick as possible. But Todd, while some are coming in, okay, here I've got one right here. This is from Kenzie. Any tips for the teen years? It's hard to love them sometimes too.
Sometimes, man, I would just say, I hope you take comfort in knowing that everybody with teenagers has felt exactly what you're feeling. I've got a teenager right now who is making it hard to not love, because we love our children, but I think it's hard to like, and by liking, here's how we show our kids we like them. We smile at them. Some of our kids are hard to smile at. Here, you want a tip? Here's the tip. You make yourself smile at your kids. you know, because they need you desperately. Some of them are kind of like pushing you away. They're the ones you need to pull in even more. Again, and you know, it's really all our kids. I went through that. That were, you know, we're testing our strengths, we're testing our wills. And moms and dads, I know it's easy to give up, but you just need to buckle up, set your heels in, and say, I'm never giving up on you. I remember one time with one of my teenagers, who was an older teen. I was like, I was just tired of the whatever the battle was. We were going through this battle back and forth, and I said, I'm finished. Fine, you want it that way? Just go ahead. I don't care anymore. And I'll never forget my son, who's taller than I am, said, his eyes teared up, and he looked at me and he said, don't give up, Dad. You know, your kids may say they don't like you, or worse, they hate you. They may be hard all the time. But really what they're saying through their actions is, don't give up on me. So that's my tip. Don't give up. Keep loving, of course, but try smiling at your child, even if you don't feel like smiling at them.
Yeah, thank you. Got the next question from Jim. I have 15 and 10-year-old boys homeschooling for the first time this year. They don't have the love for learning. Any suggestions on how to bring back that love that I think was lost while in the public school?
Well, you know, and I'm not slamming on the public school, or, you know, the thing is, it kills learning. It just does. And what I would say before I answer your question is, everybody listening, make sure you're not copying the way they do it, because it will kill learning in your house too. You know, if you're all you care about is the grade, if all you care about is the test, some kids will excel in it, others will not. And they will not like learning if it's all about, for example, my wife asked me to do school one day, and she was like, Todd, could you do this course? And I had this big, thick textbook, and it was on marine biology. And I thought, oh, this will be so much fun. You know, it'll be marine animals. I love animals. And it was on dolphins that day. And I'm like, oh, dolphins, that's really cool. All the book talked about was their kingdom, phylum, class, species, whatever that is. Who cares what species they're in or what classification? They never talked about how dolphins can sleep with one eye open, or they can dive 1,000 feet. And I think that kind of thing kills learning. So here's what I would do. 15 and 10-year-old boys homeschooling for the first time this year, I would shy away from the textbooky kind of stuff. And I would just look for things that are super engaging, you know, whether they're, you know, books from the library, or just lots of picture books, or maybe it's even YouTube videos, or things that bring back the fun in learning. Maybe it's self-directed a little bit. You know, I don't know what your kids like doing up there in Manitoba, staying warm, I don't know, hunting, or, you know, I know that's really stereotypical, isn't it? But I'm trying to, I'm reading whatever this blue thing that came across my screen.
You just said we'll keep going for a few extra minutes because of the tech problems.
Okay, I'm good for as long as you want to go. And so, you know, I would work really, really hard at trying to create that by maybe keeping the topics broad and not too deep, highly engaging, and let them kind of learn what they want to learn. I don't know who it was, but someone once said that, you know, if your kids have been in the system, you should take a month off of regular schooling for every year they were in the system. So if you've got a fourth grader, you take 4 months off, you know, and then you just work on the relationship and having fun and learning, because tons of learning takes place after the books are closed. You know, I've heard my wife say, oh, our kids didn't learn anything today. And I'm like, honey, you know, at the end of the school day, that's where the real learning begins. And I don't say that because it's a cute thing to say. I believe it with all my heart. I think it's the truth.
Okay, great. Next question. For the dads who are not able to listen to this message, how would you encourage the moms to discuss some of these points? And how do we remind them to remind us that we were good teachers, or that we are good teachers?
I would say, I know we have a book called Help I Married to a Homeschooling Mom, showing dads how to meet the needs of their homeschooling wives. I'm pretty sure, and I think that I'm not sure where in Canada the Learning House is located, which is a homeschool bookstore there in Canada. But I'm pretty sure they carry that book. I would look for that, or I would sign them up for our weekly email. We send a one out to lots of dads. It's called, you can find it on familymanweb.com, or you contact me and I'll get you a free audio CD, whether a download or something that would encourage your husbands to encourage you in what really, really matters.
Great. Yeah. Thank you.
But and I would also say, just tell him. Tell him. Don't do it like at the end of a school day, but the next time you're on a date, say to your husband, honey, I really believe in this homeschooling thing, but I need you to encourage me because I get wobbly sometimes. And here's what I need. Tell him exactly. I need you to not solve it. I just need you to say this small phrase. You can do it, honey. You can do it. Or tell him something specific that you need him to do, whether that's enforce a behavior or reinforce something. I give them this assignment and they don't do it. My wife will say that to me and I'm like, well, why won't they? I don't know, but they listen to you, but they don't listen to me. So maybe we as husbands have to flex our muscle, but you tell us what they need.
Okay, thank you. Todd, this question is for you. I'm asking them all to you, but I'm just saying that. Did you receive adequate academics in homeschool to be prepared for university?
Yes. But here's the question. I'm not saying you have a wrong question, but it's the wrong question. Because I have people ask me that all the time. Are your kids, did your kids get enough education, so they can go to university? The question should not be that, because really that means it was a pretty average education. Because the college university, do you call it university instead of college? Okay. University. The university, it's made for average kids, who all have the same direction. In homeschooling, we have raised them above average, different than average, out of the box. So I think the question is, are your kids prepared for whatever God has for them afterwards? And the answer is yes. It may not be exactly what we thought it was going to be. It might be something else. But all of my kids have been adequately prepared for whatever God wanted for them afterwards.
Great. Appreciate that. Next question. How do you motivate a child who is good at a subject but complains nonstop about how she doesn't want to do it?
I would just, and we all have that. I would ask that child, I'd say, hey, you're so good at this, but you don't like doing it. Why is it? They might say, well, it's just a lot of busy work. Then here's what I would do. I wouldn't do the busy work. If they're already good at it, why do you have to make them continue doing it? You just let them, you just check it off and say they completed it. Now, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's, I don't like that it takes so long, or maybe I would like to do something a little harder, or whatever it is. But I know parents who become such a slave to the curriculum, they can't adjust it at all. So, I've had parents whose kids have written books, and yet that other people are writing, and they're still worried that they don't know the protagonist or the antagonist of the story. And I'm like, just because they don't know the terminology doesn't mean you're failing. In fact, everything they're doing proves they know how to do it. So I would have that conversation. And again, but if they're really good at something, maybe you don't have to push so hard at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good advice. Thank you. Next question I have for you. I think we can all relate to that. Or if your children aren't old enough, as in teens, you will probably consider this. Next question. What can you do when your teens say they hate homeschool and wants to go back to public school, but as a parent, you believe home education is what they truly need?
Okay, here's the deal. Your kids are dumb. They do not know what's good for themselves. You know, I mean, no, they're not dumb, because I think I'm looking at the Lawrencens and they look like that. I mean, I can see her on the screen right now and she looks like a teenager. She doesn't look dumb. But your kids don't know what's good for themselves. Yes, I'm talking about you, Lawrencens. You know, our kids don't know what's good for them. You know, if you let them decide, they'll always choose the wrong thing. So you decide in your head, or your heart, if you believe homeschooling is the best for your kids, then homeschool your kids, no matter what. Now, I would say, talk to your kids, you know, and say, okay, you say you want to go back to public school. What is it about public school that you really, really like? You know, sometimes they'll say, well, you know, I just feel like I had more friends there. And you can say, well, how about if we hook up with these people? Or, you know, what would help you in that area? You know, and they say, well, you know, and you might say, well, you know, some of those friends, you're never going to see them again. And that's by design. Or maybe they say, I just want to, you know, I want to play sports. And then, so maybe you talk about how would we fill that need, you know, in our homeschool? And I would say, you know, I really, really believe the homeschooling is the best for you, honey. You know, I want to make it as enjoyable to you as I can. But, you know, God's put me in charge, put it on as our responsibility. So we're going to have to do this. So you keep talking to me, but this is the direction we're going to continue to go. Because again, you know, I have parents, well, even say the other way, that my teenager, though, they come up to me with this big smile and they'll say, oh, my teenager, he wants to be homeschooled. And that's why we're doing it. I'm like, well, you know, in about a week, they're not going to want to be homeschooled. What are you going to do then? Because I believe it's not up to what they feel about it. It's up to us what we think is best. And I'll tell you, sometimes they complain and scream and it's not fair. You've ruined my life. You look them dead in the eye and say, that's my job, to ruin your life, you know, and you keep doing what you believe to be true. Right, Lawrencens? They're giving me the thumbs up. So good.
Okay. I'll just open it up again. Any more questions? Keep them coming. I've got a couple more I'm going to field to Todd. And so please send your questions to the chat box and we'll send them his way. What about if the home is a loud, chaotic mess? Todd, have you ever heard that expression?
I've heard it in my own house. Oh. Are you kidding me? You know, and my wife has said that, you know, and she'll say, Todd, our house is just so loud and it's so, you know, it's just so messy and I don't feel like I'm getting anything done. And, you know, they're all yelling at each other and I'm yelling at them. And here's the deal. Every once in a while, I'll be in my office is in the basement. Right now, I'm in my family man barn. That's why all this stuff is around here. But I'll go by our school area and I can hear them yelling and crying and laughing. And I've told my wife, you know, when she talks about the chaos, I said, honey, that's the music of our home. And really one day the music will stop and you're going to miss it. So I would say to all you parents who just feel like that chaos is just so much, enjoy it because it's going to be over before you know it. And one day it's going to be all nice and clean and tidy and quiet. In fact, I got a letter today from a dad whose wife, he separated from his wife and he was just saying, Todd, my house is clean. You know, it's quiet. I have all the time in the world. And across town, my wife is with all our kids and there are dirty dishes in the sink. They're arguing and bickering and and he goes, that's what I want. You know, and again, for us one day, when we're old and they're feeding us Jell-O in the nursing home, we're going to wish we could go back and do this all over again. So don't wish it away.
Thank you very much. Got a couple questions here. I just lost them. They're going to come back. Okay, here we go. What can you do when your teens, no, I'm sorry. What are your thoughts on kids having friends their same age? Is that necessary or can there be a big gap in age without them missing anything?
Yeah, I mean, I know some parents are really concerned about that, that they have friends who are their same ages. I don't worry about that. Can there be gaps? Of course there can be gaps. Maybe they have friends who are older, or maybe they're adults, or maybe their siblings are their friends. Really, in our family, our kids were best friends as little kids. You know why they were best friends? Because they were the only friends they had, really. And it wasn't necessarily by design, but I put such a high priority on our family because I knew when they grew up that I wanted them to put a priority on their family. Because sometimes we put such a priority on friends that we grow up to thinking that I want to be surrounded by friends too, and really what I want for my kids is I want them to enjoy the units that they have in their own home. So they're not trying to escape them all the time. And so, my little kids would play with my big kids. And, I can remember seeing my son, who was probably 18 at the time, playing with his little sister, who was probably 6 at the time, playing Candyland. And he's like, she skipped, she did 3 purples. There's only 2 purples. And, and he did it because, did he want to? No. But, now all my kids, I've got 4 married now, they're still best friends. And I think that's really, really cool. So I wouldn't worry about it at all.
Okay, next question. We believe that children are a blessing, a gift from the Lord. How does this work for those of us that have been blessed with only one child?
Oh, I think this is a great question. I think what she was saying was, does that thing about, making the family unit a priority, does it still work with one child? And the answer is yes. Maybe even more so because, again, our homes, where I said home is the best place to be, 365 days out of the year, and all those things we're teaching them carries over to when they're going to be adults. Again, I want my only child to know that the unit that they're going to find that, that we want them to enjoy is that family unit. So I would not feel the pressure. Now, I wouldn't just keep them away from everybody. I'm not saying that. But I know a lot of moms and dads with only one child, they feel this pressure that they have to be like the fun activities director on a cruise ship, that they have to get them and make sure they have lots of fun and lots of friends and lots of experiences. That's okay, but I don't think you need that extra pressure. I would work real hard to, again, train them to know that this family unit is where they're going to spend most of their time later on. Not like, oh man, we've got to get you some real friends because, you're so lonely. Yes, your child might be lonely. And I would never ignore that and say, tough it. You're just go to your room. I wouldn't say that. But I still want that unit, that family unit, to be the thing that they find their most pleasure in, because again, they're going to probably spend most of their time in that unit.
Mm-hmm. Your second point, Todd, you talked about parents are the best teachers of their children. It kind of sounds like the biblical example of shepherds caring for the sheep, right? That's what, right. When you said right. That's what I was thinking of. Do shepherds lead sheep, or do they come along behind and just steer them and keep them going? How does this look like in the home? Like, how do you lead? How do you encourage? How do you nudge? Like, how do you navigate through difficulties or challenges?
Well, I find yelling really works well.
Mm-hmm. That, right?
And don't ever pretend that we as parents, Kelly, you sound so calm. I would wish I was more calm. I'm not. I blow it as a dad all the time. I blow those teachable moments, but I never give up. And yes, it's all those things a shepherd does. I'm not a shepherd. I won't claim, I don't even hardly like my own dog. But I will say the shepherds do all those things. They lead by example, because, we can say whatever and tell them to love God and to love each other. But if we're not doing it, they won't do it, And so, I think I mentioned it in, the talk today, but I'm not positive. One of those lessons I want my kids to know is how to be married and how to stay married. So part of the shepherding I do is I stay married and I keep loving my wife, even when I don't understand it. And she's, she doesn't get me. I never, ever give up. I don't give up just because I love my wife, even though I do. I don't give up because I know all my kids are watching me and I've got to show them how not to give up. And so when she goes, I don't want to talk to you anymore, I suck it up and I go deal with it again, because I want my kids to suck it up one day and deal, and continue to pursue. Yes. So there is, of course, the example, but there is also the pushing and the nudging. My dad used to say, I want my child to take out the trash. I don't care if he has a good attitude about it. I just want him to do it. And sometimes we do that, and because we just say, go take out the trash, and they don't, and you keep pushing them. And here's my purpose, is because for parenting, it doesn't always make a lot of sense to our kids. They don't understand why we're telling them to be kind or why they need to do their chores, because it's just going to get dirty again. But here's what I'm hoping, that one day, when they're have a family of their own, all of a sudden the light bulb goes bling and they go, oh yeah, that's why dad did it. And again, so it's all those things. Yes, it's by pushing, it's by leading, it's by example. I know one time, I used to have a smartphone. I have kind of a dumb phone now. It takes texts and emails, but that's all. I can do maps. But I used to be able to check everything, Facebook and the internet. And I felt like it was kind of sucking me in, not to bad things, but I felt like it was just siphoning off all the good stuff. Like it was taking my attention. So I got rid of it and got a dumb phone, dumber than this one even. And I didn't do it again because, I hate technology. I really did it because I want my kids to be able to give up their technology one day. I want them to go, my dad did it, I can do it too.
Okay. Last question, and then we'll sign off for the evening.
Okay.
It's important to smile at our children, but how do I make myself smile at a child who is hard to smile at? And that's important. You said that was important to do. Can you enlighten us a little bit more in that area?
Okay, I even kind of touched on it. Here's what you do. Okay, we're all going to practice. I can still see the Lawrences, so the Lawrences are going to try it with me. Okay, everybody make a straight face, and then on the count of 3, we're all going to smile. Ready? 1, 2, 3. See, wasn't that easy? I mean, you just made yourself smile. So here's your assignment. See, the Lawrences are even giggling. And so here's what I would do tomorrow, or maybe tonight. I think it's like 9:20 there. As soon as you get off, you go, when you're putting your kids to bed or you're saying goodnight to them or you're talking to them, you just smile. And even the ones who may make it hard to smile, because, it's easy when you're watching all this, but as soon as you go back into the real, family world, it gets ugly again. You just make yourself smile. You do it again tomorrow. And maybe you make yourself say something positive, like, I'm so glad I'm your mom. I'm so glad I'm your dad. And you just do it. I have parents who say, well, I just don't feel like it. I'm like, well, suck it up. Who cares? Do it anyway. And you can do it.
Okay, thank you so much. We had one question that came in late. Gerald, should we wrap it up or should we do one more question?
Well, I think it's a significant question, and I'm not sure, Todd, whether you were seeing the question there from Lauren. I think that's a really significant one, and I'm not sure whether you want to address that one or whether you want to talk about that one tomorrow.
You know what? Let me think about that one for a little bit, and we'll talk. We'll take with that one first off. And again, I love hard questions. So if you have some other hard questions, shoot them at me.
Yep. And just for your, I'll email that question to you. So
that would be awesome. That would be awesome. I'm going to copy it as well.
Okay. Todd, thank you. And Peter, and really appreciate this first evening. I apologize for the technical difficulties. We will practice and try harder tomorrow. But we apologize. The sessions will be recorded, and actually we will have an uninterrupted session that will be posted on the website. So even if you got sort of frustrated, we will be posting it later, and so you won't miss anything. We'll be back again tomorrow with Todd. We're looking forward, Todd, to both your presentation as well as the question and answer. And I have to apologize. We asked you to speak for a long, long time. Like you started when the sun was shining through the doors behind you. It's dark now.
I am tired. I had to change my clothes too.
Yes. So I think we've had some positive comments, but thank you for participating tomorrow. We'll also be hearing from Megan Zelinka from HSLDA, who's the lawyer with HSLDA and homeschool mom. And so we'll have that feature. And so 7 o'clock, I would encourage you, if you know of people that you didn't see on here, give them a call and remind them. If they haven't registered yet, just tell them to go to the website and do that. We'd love to have even more of them, but encourage your friends, your neighbors, your relatives to join us and participate. So thanks for coming. But before we do that, why don't we close in prayer and just ask the Lord to take these things and use them in our lives. Lord God, I thank you for this evening. We thank you for the message, for the encouragement and the challenges. I just pray that you be with each one of us and our homes as we go from here. We thank you for this opportunity, and we just ask your blessing on all that we've seen and heard. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you all. See you tomorrow, Todd.
We'll see you then. Looking forward to it. Bye, Lawrencens.